Interactive's monthly webinar series. Our topic today is Chinese shopping, Chinese tourist shopping, including trends, key market segments, and what destinations and retailers can do to promote shopping to Chinese visitors. My name is Sienna Perulis-Cook, and I'm Dragon Trail's Communications Manager. I'm based in our London office. In addition to presenting many of our webinars, I also write and edit blog content for our website, dragontrail.com, help create our video series, China Outbound Travel Pulse, and run our social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So these are all additional free resources that you can check out if you haven't already. I'm also the co-author of Dragon Trail's recently published book, China, the Future of Travel, which is available for free at chinafutureoftravel.com. Dragon Trail Interactive is a digital marketing and solutions agency that's focused 100% on China and 100% on travel. We help tourism brands and businesses around the world to reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade through social media platforms like WeChat, Weibo, and Douyin, KOL campaigns, Chinese websites, travel agent training, and much more. You can find out more about the services that we provide and also case studies of our work on our website. We're headquartered in Beijing with offices in Shanghai and Xi'an, as well as international offices in the UK and the US. We work with clients on every continent except Antarctica and with many different tourism industry verticals, including tourism boards, airlines, hotels, car rental companies, cruise lines, museums, and more. Today's webinar content draws on a number of industry reports as well as conversations with leading retailers in the US and Europe, and our own research and experience with digital marketing. But I'd like to say a special thank you to KaiTrip and our contact Maren Hartung at KaiTrip. KaiTrip is a Chinese tour operator that is one of Europe's largest Chinese travel agencies. They offer many different kinds of tourism services, but also have some speciality in shopping tours. Maren and KaiTrip are both based in Germany, but also the company has offices in China and around the world. And in addition to being a travel agency, KaiTrip also is a media company with WeChat accounts and Weibo accounts that have many different followers, as well as a magazine about travel in Europe. And all of these media channels recommend topics in fashion and lifestyle, as well as tourism. KaiTrip was able to offer us a real wealth of knowledge about Chinese shopping trends and best practice for retailers and destinations. And Maren there also organizes a semi-annual brands and tourism conference in Europe, which is a very good opportunity for brands, retailers, and destinations to train and network with Chinese tourism professionals and learn from each other as well. On today's agenda, we'll first look at the big picture and ask how important is shopping to the Chinese travel experience. Then we'll look at some of the most important consumer trends that are affecting shopping behavior, as well as differences in market segments. Then we'll offer a number of tips and strategies to both retailers and destinations to attract and cater to Chinese shoppers, and we'll finish up with a Q&A session. As always, if you have questions, you can ask them at any point during the webinar by using the Q&A button, which you should see on your Zoom control panel. Please use the Q&A button and instead of the chat to ask questions, because using the Q&A button, it's easy for me to see all of the questions at the end and make sure they get answered, whereas they can get a little bit lost if you use the chat to ask them. As always as well, we will be sharing a PDF of today's slides, as well as a link to a recording of the webinar in the next day or two with all attendees. So you'll have that if you want to review any of the content or share it with colleagues. So let's talk about Chinese shopping abroad. First, how much do Chinese tourists spend on shopping? This will depend on the destination, of course, on the individual shopper, and also which survey data you use. We have a number of different 2018 figures here from different companies and organizations. And as you can see, the amount is a little bit different in each of them. But overall, we can see that generally Chinese tourists will be spending over $700 on shopping per trip. And they definitely also spend more on average than non-Chinese tourists spend. Chinese are not the biggest shoppers in every world destination, but they are in Europe, the US, and Australia. So these are three major tourism markets and shopping destinations in the world. Within Europe, Chinese are the leading tax-free shopping spenders throughout Western Europe's biggest shopping destinations, accounting for 1/3 or more of the tax-free shopping in Italy, Spain, Germany, and France, and almost 1/3 of the tax-free shopping in the UK as well. So how important is shopping to Chinese tourists? As you may have noticed in the previous slide here, Oliver Wyman's 2018 survey found that the average spend on shopping abroad in 2018 was just over $800, which was actually a decrease from around $1,100 2 years before. In general, average Chinese shopping spending is declining, and Chinese tourists are now choosing to spend more on special experiences, especially food. Shopping was still a key consideration for over 1/2 of Chinese tourists in Hotels.com's 2018 survey, but it ranked below food and heritage sites. The World Tourism City Federation's 2018 report showed that shopping was one of the purposes for traveling abroad for only around 30% of their survey respondents, below sightseeing, experiencing different cultures, and food. In Nielsen's 2018 survey, less than 1/2 of respondents chose shopping as an objective for travel, although shopping was still the number 3 biggest objective beneath leisure and food. Several 2018 reports found that Chinese spend only 25 or 32%, and I say only because other reports show that they spend more than that, 25 or 32% of their travel budgets on shopping. The good news for retailers is that this is still the largest spending category of anything, any kind of category that Chinese tourists spend money on for their travel expenses, and Chinese still spend a lot more on shopping than other nationalities do. As I mentioned before, so we saw that shopping only took up 25 or 32% of travel budgets in 2 of those previous surveys, but here are another couple of reports from 2018 as well that show shopping as a much larger percentage still. So this chart is from WTCF, and it puts shopping at around 40% of travel costs for overseas Chinese independent travelers. And we can see that this is a much bigger proportion of travel expenses than any other cost on there. This chart as well shows that shopping comes in at just under 40% of travel spending by category, and this data comes from 2018 and was released by the China Tourism Academy just last month. So there's some discrepancy over some of the numbers, but one point that everyone seems to agree on is that Chinese shoppers are very, very prepared. They do a lot of research before traveling, and they are likely to prepare a shopping list before leaving China. The WTCF survey from last year found that around 60% of Chinese tourists make a shopping list in advance before leaving China. Anecdotally, we've also heard about Chinese who are now likely to show up in a shop overseas with a picture of what they want on their phones, ready to show the shop assistant and ask about availability. Well, especially for younger shoppers, we've been advised that making the shopping experience faster and more convenient is advisable. I think it's also interesting that the WTCF survey found that not only did around 57.5% spend more than one whole day of their trip shopping, but nearly a third said that they actually wanted to increase their shopping time for a future trip. So later on, we'll look at ways to make the shopping experience more enjoyable, so more people want to spend longer doing it, as well as more lucrative for retailers and destinations. What Chinese tourists shop for can depend significantly on the destination. For example, Japan is popular for lifestyle goods like rice cookers or heated toilet seats, while Italy and Spain are popular for fashion. Spain has actually received a big boost and become more popular for fashion recently, thanks to long sales periods and good prices. While East Asia is very popular for cosmetics and is known for this, especially Japan and South Korea that have cosmetics brands that are very popular in China, the US is actually quite big for cosmetics purchases as well, with a focus on US brands. So what are Chinese tourists buying? We see cosmetics and luxury discussed a lot in the media, and these are significant, but actually souvenirs are actually one of, if not the most important category for Chinese tourist shopping. Local specialties are also very important, so this can include things like Swiss Army knives, maca root powder in Peru, or specialty local food products to bring back as gifts. So this again is looking at the WTCF survey that was released last year that shows that souvenirs and local specialties were by far the items that were purchased by the most Chinese overseas tourists, followed by cosmetics, and then further down the line, clothing, jewelry, luxury products being less than 30% of outbound travelers actually. Here is another study from Nielsen from 2018. This is based on Alipay data, and they found that skincare and beauty, so cosmetics, were the most important item, but then this was closely followed by local specialties and souvenirs again. To work out the best strategy for your business or destination, you'll need to understand the current consumer trends and market segments, as Chinese tourists are very diverse and they're certainly not a monolithic body with just one uniform set of demands. So first, let's talk about the main categories of retailers. First, there are department stores. These can be marketed as tourist attractions in and of themselves. They are often iconic brands that are part of a city sightseeing experience. And department stores tend to quite wisely play this up in their marketing. On their WeChat accounts, we can see here there are images of Bloomingdale's, Harrods, and Galeries Lafayette, all using historic photos and stressing their place in the city's or the country's history. Even if your department store isn't such a famous brand as Bloomingdale's or Harrods or Selfridges, you can still play up the history and story behind the shop to enhance its appeal as a place to visit, not just a place to spend money. Next are outlets. Outlets are more popular in the US than they are in Europe, but they're also becoming more popular in Europe thanks to their discounts and the wide range of brands that can be purchased there. They're also well suited to group tours, and they can have collaborations with travel agencies. One standout example of a European outlet is Bicester Village, which is said to be the second most visited place in the UK by Chinese tourists after Buckingham Palace. Then there are high street shops, so shopping streets. Shopping here can be very easily combined with visiting a historic city center, and retailers just need to be able to grab the attention of passers-by to get that foot traffic. Then there are dedicated gift shops and shops at tourist attractions. As we saw, souvenirs are perhaps the most important purchase category, and you can think about adapting your offerings for the Chinese market, such as offering Chinese language books, as the Museum of Modern Art in New York does, for instance. or adapting other items so that they'll be especially popular with Chinese consumers. You also want to pay a lot of attention to quality, which is something we'll discuss more later. Then lastly, there are duty-free shops. These are probably the most China-ready in terms of signage, service, and payment capabilities. And they offer some very valuable learning and trend-watching opportunities for other retailers. However, they do also face a lot of competition now from China duty-free. So at least in the Beijing airport, you can buy your duty-free items on your outbound trip, but not have to pick them up until you come back to the airport on your return home. So it saves you having to carry around the items and also means that they are not part of the weight limit of your suitcase. Chinese duty-free also offers very competitive prices. So I have some more tables for you here. The percentages between them, this table and the next table, don't totally match up again, but the overall findings are quite similar, looking at the most popular kind of retailers for Chinese tourists. So WTCF found that department stores and shopping centers were the most popular kind of retailer, followed by duty-free shops. And then shopping streets, which are very close to duty-free shops, and then tourist attractions, brand franchise stores, so that would be a single brand store, then discount stores and outlets, and then finally antique shops at around 15%. Nielsen had the same top two kinds of retailers, but their order is swapped. So we have duty-free shops in the lead, and then department stores, large supermarkets, which are also quite popular for Chinese tourism shopping, convenience stores, and luxury shops at 31%. There are also some regional differences, but the emphasis is still quite strong on luxury, looking across the US, Australia, continental Europe, and the UK. As we've seen, although shopping is still really important, budgets are decreasing for shopping. Retailers and destinations will now need to work harder for those shopping budgets, and understanding and adapting to trends is vital to this. While established brands are still popular, especially in the US, you're much less likely now to have a whole tour group all buy the exact same watch or bag as you might have had in the past. Especially with younger Chinese travelers, shopping is now more about showing off your individuality and your own taste by buying unique items that are hard or even impossible to find in China. In Europe, at least, you now might have more purchases of lower value than few purchases of really big ticket items like in the past. In Europe as well, there's also more interest in local brands and designers. And even if it's a big brand like Burberry, for example, Chinese tourists would like to buy it in its country of origin. The photo here actually illustrates a few points that I've already talked about today. It's a photo that I took of a tour group that I was bringing around the city of Bath in the UK. And it wasn't part of the tour, but they told me specifically that they wanted to go to a shop where local people shopped, not a tourist shop, a local shop. They were very clear on that. And so I brought them to a department store called Jolly's. Jolly's is actually the first ever department store to open in the UK, so I was able to share that piece of history with them, which they thought was very interesting, and then made it more of a tourist experience to visit this first ever department store in the country. Then they were interested in buying some jewelry that they're looking at in this picture by a brand called Ted Baker, which is a UK brand. And especially even the logo for Ted Baker says Ted Baker London. And they really wanted to buy a brand that was from London while visiting the UK. So one more trend is also that the really rushed coach tours are going out of fashion, with Chinese preferring now to see just one or a few European countries, or even one or just a few South American countries for that matter, at a time on one trip. and have a slower and more in-depth experience when they travel. So this also means that shopping can be more relaxed and less rushed than it used to be. Some trends pose challenges to certain retailers and regions. The price difference between shopping in China and overseas is no longer as big as it used to be. And the price gap on pure luxury fashion brands is now only 12% between China and the US. However, there's still a sizable price difference between China and Europe, and as well as for accessible luxury brands in the US. Luxury watch and jewelry retailers have also been hit hard by a crackdown on official gift giving, which started around 10 years ago. And then more recently, a crackdown on Daigou cross-border professional shoppers in the past year will also affect overseas retail, especially for some markets like South Korea and duty-free cosmetics, for example. So let's look at some market segments and the differences among them. Of course, you can't ever totally generalize, but there are some guidelines to help you understand your clients. Younger travelers, those born in the 1980s and 1990s, so millennials into older Gen Zs, are looking for items that they cannot buy in China, as well as diverse brand selections and full product ranges that aren't available at home. The youngest of this demographic, born in the 1990s, they actually spend the smallest amount of their travel budgets on shopping, and they are less likely than Chinese tourists born in the 1980s and the 1970s to see shopping as an objective for traveling. But that said, looking forward, China's Gen Z, so born from 1995 into the 2000s, are more likely than millennials to buy luxury brands. This includes domestic shopping as well. So there are opportunities looking at younger consumers. Post-80s and younger consumers are very well informed. They're digitally savvy and they're likely to speak English. In Europe, at least, the majority of these travelers are women, which is good for retailers. And they are likely to book their travel online and to travel with family and friends. To stand out with these younger travelers, you need multiple digital touch points throughout the journey and before the journey, especially as younger consumers are most likely to first experience a brand online and then experience it within a store when they travel. They also generally prefer to shop online, so you really need to incentivize them to shop in-store with events and promotions. Shops can also provide a click and collect service for tourists so that they just come and pick up their purchases and can even order those purchases while they're still in China. Older travelers, on the other hand, are quite different. They're more likely to travel on a group tour and they're less likely to speak English, as well as more likely to need advice on shopping since they don't use the internet as much. This means that they'll appreciate the services of Chinese-speaking shop assistants, and they'll also rely on the recommendations of their tour guides. They probably won't be as clear about what they want to buy as younger travelers are without all of that research ahead of time. So being patient and helpful and making sure that they feel comfortable can go a long way with this demographic. Looking at the differences between group tourists and FITs, independent travelers are more challenging for retailers, although their use of digital tools means that you can connect and stay in touch with them longer. So you have greater possibilities for double conversion with repeat visits or e-commerce, even when they get back to China. While FIT is growing, so are customized tours and high net worth travelers working with travel advisors. In the US, some retailers are now shifting their B2B focus away from big groups to these high-end agencies instead, with very good results. In the next part of the presentation, I'll share a number of practical tips for retailers, as well as some for destinations, as I know we have many destinations attending today's webinar. I should advise also that most retailers, like any kind of tourism brand, to really have a comprehensive China strategy would involve addressing multiple different areas, including B2C, B2B, and working with local partners. Tax refunds are not applicable to all destinations, but they are very important for Europe. It's hard to give really detailed advice on tax refunds, as well as there are a lot of differences even between countries within Europe. But the takeaway should be that you should do whatever you can to make the tax refund as easy as possible. So some countries, including France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Denmark, and Norway, offer e-validation, so travelers don't have to submit paper applications at the airport. If you can provide instant tax refunds in store with the refund paid via Alipay or WeChat Pay, this is the ideal. And there are a number of tax refund providers that can help make that possible. But at least having an in-store tax refund assistance service like Harrods does here with their tax-free refund lounge, this can encourage shoppers to choose to shop at your store or outlet. The next topic is payments. So before UnionPay cards became widely accepted, Chinese shoppers may have to travel with suitcases filled with cash. This seems like a very long time ago already, and now accepting UnionPay cards is really the minimum you can do to encourage Chinese shopping. More than half of Chinese tourists in Europe are already using mobile payments for shopping, and most would like to do so in the future. Not every shop will have the same experience once they get set up to accept Alipay and or WeChat Pay. And one major US retailer confided that mobile payments actually didn't bring in new customers, but they definitely increased spending power, as there are frequent problems with that retailer in reading UnionPay card chips that you don't have with scanning the QR codes for Alipay and WeChat Pay. And UnionPay cards also have a $10,000 US limit on them, which they don't have with mobile payments either. The same retailer also advised that offering cashback promotions with Alipay or WeChat Pay could bring in more customers. From the perspective of the managing director of a major outlet chain in Europe, though, it's not necessarily about getting Chinese to spend more or even bringing them into the shop by having the mobile payments, but it's more about making them feel comfortable and happy. Not offering mobile payments, he says, is like not offering toilets. And by the way, I've heard that it turns out that offering toilets is actually very efficient to increase sales turnover and drive tourists into a store. So that's something to think about too, especially if you're a larger retailer. When it comes to products, it's best if they're local. So this goes for fashion brands, as we mentioned earlier, but of course not all shopping is for expensive jewelry or luxury brands. And souvenir and food gift shopping are important areas too. But Chinese tourists aren't going to want to buy a souvenir if they turn it over and it says made in China on the back. So really focusing on locally made crafts, local specialties, and local brands is the way to go. I've included in this slide a couple of screenshots from a really nice shopping guide that was published on WeChat by the Japanese National Tourism Board a couple of weeks ago. And the post featured lots of beautiful photos of local crafts and food items that would make good souvenirs or gifts to bring back to China. As a retailer, you need to think about what will make a tourist want to shop while traveling, and things that they wouldn't just buy online at home or from another shop. So some ways to do this is to make shopping an experience, and we'll talk more about that in the next slide. And also offering discounts can help a lot. Chinese tourists are very interested in discounts, but actually giving small value-added gifts can be even more effective than discounts. It's also a good idea to run limited time, single country or single shop promotions, perhaps only selling a certain item in its country of origin, for example, to encourage tourist shopping. Customization and personalization are other major trends. The photo here is from the Cambridge Satchel Company in the UK, which had a lot of success with Chinese customers a few years ago by offering a free monogramming service over the Chinese National Day holiday period. Unique experiences also make shopping more than just buying things. This includes offering VIP private openings and tours, extended hours, and a delivery service to guest hotels. There's an example in the photo on the right here of a VIP shopping room at Bicester Village. Galeries Lafayette also offers a special welcome reception area just for group tours. They have private rooms for groups, they serve refreshments, and they also offer a multilingual service. Pop-ups make shopping a photo opportunity, which is very important for young Chinese, and a special experience that requires visiting a physical location. The image here is from a Louis Vuitton pop-up in Los Angeles, which is an exhibition that's currently on, and it has received a lot of attention on the Chinese social media app, Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book. You can also think about organizing a product launch or an event with a Chinese key opinion leader in order to especially bring younger consumers to a physical store. It's also a good idea to tie shopping to the overall travel experience. So just as a tourism board can recommend certain shops in their marketing, shops can also recommend tourist activities. El Corte Inglés in Spain offers a travel guide to Spain on its WeChat account. Bicester Village recommends tourism experiences in the area, such as visiting Blenheim Palace. And Galeries Lafayette ties their collections and designers to French destinations and culture. This all integrates shopping with tourism and helps to set it apart from shopping at home. Finally, no matter the age of your customers or if they're traveling as a group or independently, make them feel comfortable with things like hot water and other drinks, snacks, especially local specialties, and even little giveaways. All of these things will give customers a good time and good memories and encourage them to recommend you to their family, friends, and colleagues, as well as online. So what can you do especially for Chinese clients in addition to hot water and Chinese payments? First, there are Chinese holiday promotions, including events, gifts, and special editions. Right now, we're just on the brink of the October holiday Golden Week, which is one of the peak periods of the year for Chinese shopping overseas. And it's an excellent opportunity to provide special offers, limited editions, and other promotions. It was also just Mid-Autumn Festival last Friday, and that offered a good opportunity for special promotions as well. There's a picture here from mooncakes that were branded from Kai Trip and distributed to some business partners and consumers. Mooncakes are pastries that are eaten at Mid-Autumn Festival, but more than just a pastry, mooncakes are also really very much a symbolic gift, which are used to honor and solidify important relationships. So you can get mooncakes that are imprinted with your brand name, like the ones that we can see here, or get special packaging that has your brand name on it. And around the Mid-Autumn Festival, give these mooncakes to customers, especially VIP customers, to grab their attention, show them that you really honor your relationship with them, as well as respect Chinese culture, and stand out in their mind that way. Having Chinese signs and service will put customers at ease, especially those who don't speak English. And Chinese service can also include having brand ambassadors who work at your shop. So this is applicable for larger retailers. These brand ambassadors would work as personal shoppers and advisors. And one of the advantages to having employees like this is that they can build long-term relationships with clients, and this will encourage repeat visits, and they can also keep the clients informed about promotions and new products via WeChat. You can also offer discounts just for Chinese customers, or at least say it's a discount for Chinese customers to make those customers feel that they're getting something special. So how can you do this? El Corte Inglés, a department store brand in Spain, they offer a 10% discount to all foreign passport holders. So you just need to bring your foreign passport to the membership, to the service desk and apply for a membership card there in order to get the discount. Another method is what Bister Village has done in the screenshot that shows the QR code. And they offer a discount voucher that is available via WeChat. And then again, you redeem this by bringing it to the service desk at the outlet. Although FIT is on the rise, B2B marketing is still very much advised, especially in Europe and especially for the luxury market. Retailers can work together with agencies and operators as well as with individual tour guides. You can run seminars for local tour guides to introduce them to your store, outlet, or your brand, and you can also participate in bigger retail and brands conferences for the Chinese travel industry, like the one organized by Kaitrip. This is a picture of their brands conference in Munich from this past June. To connect to individual tour guides, it's helpful to work with travel agencies or even tax refund companies who will have many contacts in this area already. When you're working with tour guides, commissions are a must. These can go up to 12%, I've been advised, depending on the brand or shop, and they are expected to be paid in cash. You can also use your personal networks or your B2B social media channels, if you have them, to regularly update tour leaders and guides on things like offers, services, news like new brands or new products that you stock, opening hours, pre-order services, and contact details. An example of that is on the right, which was an example of a communication about a promotion on bags, which was shared by a European retailer with their tour operator contacts. On the B2C side, as I mentioned earlier, you want to connect to potential clients at multiple times before and throughout the journey, and you especially need to start communicating before they arrive, when they're still researching and making the shopping lists. So these kinds of communications include WeChat, Weibo, video marketing, and KOL collaborations. Harrods in London has some really lovely KOL content and short videos on the WeChat account, which you can see screenshots of here, and might want to go to their account and watch the videos, as I think they're very effective. Alipay is also getting more and more into tourism marketing, and the app does recommend nearby venues that accept Alipay, as well as information on promotions and discounts. Alipay has also started launching their own mini programs. I know they currently have a new one with San Diego and also released one maybe a few months ago with Melbourne. So mini programs are something that were first launched by WeChat. Now other tech brands in China are getting into mini programs as well. An Alipay mini program, since it is linked to the Alipay app, is going to be a little bit more focused on payments and commercial topics than a WeChat app, which can certainly, a WeChat mini program can certainly recommend retailers, but it would tend to be a more general tourism topics than something that's more shopping focused. In location, geo-targeted advertising is also available on both WeChat Moments ads and Weibo advertising. So for instance, you can geo-target Weibo or WeChat users who are in New York City, if you are a retailer in New York City, and so grab their attention that way about a promotion or event that's going on while they're in the place where they can actually attend it. Marketing to local Chinese, especially students, is good for word of mouth marketing and can positively influence tourism spending. It can be hard to get students to buy offline, but good shareable events like KOLs and pop-ups will help here. In the US and in the UK, there is a Chinese discount website called Deal Moon that's very popular, but you do have to be prepared to offer big discounts if you want to promote your brand or store on here. Finally, partnerships with local tourism boards are also important. So how can destinations help support local businesses? This includes social media and other campaigns to recommend local specialties and also tourism itineraries that include shopping. Supporting business partners to identify their USPs, especially for the Chinese market, running giveaways with local products, and running workshops to train local businesses on information like the information shared in this webinar, as well as running networking events to promote knowledge sharing and collaboration. So examples on the left here are of Geneva's Chinese website, which has shopping recommendations, and then a WeChat post from the Dubai Tourism Board about a Chinese KOL in Dubai at the Dubai Mall. Dubai does a lot of WeChat to promote, a lot of WeChat posts to promote shopping. And the Japanese Tourism Board account has also had a lot of very good shopping related content recently in the lead up to Golden Week. So those are some destination accounts that you can check out for nice examples. On the B2B side, tourism boards can support retailers through travel agent training, such as with Dragon Trail's CTA travel agent training program and CTA live webinars for travel agents. There are examples here on the right-hand side of Visit Sweden's CTA training program, which has a module on shopping in Stockholm. Destinations can also choose to partner with tour agencies like KaiTrip, which can help you with marketing to Chinese consumers, as well as help you connect to tour guides. So that wraps up today's webinar. Before we move on to the Q&A section, I'd like to share a few additional resources. If you're not a regular visitor to the Dragon Trail website, I would recommend visiting for lots of market reports, articles, interviews, videos, and other resources to help you learn more about Chinese outbound tourism and digital marketing. I've already published just this afternoon an article that wraps up some of the key points from today's webinar presentation. So you'll have that in written form if you want that, as well as the presentation slides and recording that we will share with everybody in the next couple of days. You can also sign up to our newsletter on our website so that you get monthly updates as well as webinar invitations. We're active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter with the latest news, research, and Dragon Trail events. In the next month, our team will be speaking at, I think, 7 or 8 different events all around the world, and we would love to meet you in person, so please don't hesitate to get in touch directly. You can check out the event calendar to see all of those locations and events on the event section of our website, and we've also published an event calendar for October and November on our social media accounts already. As I mentioned earlier, we published an updated guide to everything you need to know about Chinese tourism this May, and you can get an electronic copy of the book for free if you haven't already at chinafutureoftravel.com. Our next webinar is coming up in a month on October 16th, and we will be discussing responsible and sustainable tourism from China with practical ways to address issues of environmental preservation, over-tourism, and animal welfare and conservation in respect to Chinese outbound tourism. We'll also include case studies and examples of some great initiatives that are coming from China. You can sign up for that webinar already on our website on the event section, as well as at the link below, which you'll receive in the PDF of the presentation. So now we're ready for the Q&A section. If you have any questions, I will also launch a quick poll at this point. If you have time to fill that out, it'll be very helpful for us to get the feedback, especially in terms of topics that you might be interested in for future webinars as we think about planning for the end of the year and beginning of 2020. I wanted to say a huge thank you again to KaiTrip, as well as the others who helped with today's webinar materials. And thank you all of you who attended as well. If you have questions for me, you can email me. My website is on the bottom left of the screen, or also email communications@dragontrail.com, and I'll see those emails as well. If you have questions for KaiTrip as well, or if you're interested in cooperating with them, they would like to hear from you, and Marin's email is also on the screen here. Thank you again to everyone who joined us today. We will hope to see you at next month's webinar and or at one of our upcoming events. I'll leave the webinar up just